What's up, YouTube? Sean the Average Angler, and it is January 1st, 2024. What happened in 2023? Boy, that year went by fast. Wasn't necessarily the best year at the Average Angler's household. We lost 3 of our pets this year. They were all old, had good lives. Anyway, moving on. It is January, and this video is to cover top baits for January. I don't want to say best because you never really know, and kind of depends on where you're located in the country too. Maybe if you're up north and you have ice out, maybe your best thing is an ice auger. I don't know. Going out on the ice kind of freaks me out. Anyway, so let's get into some baits. Must-haves. Call it must-haves. Call it high percentage for January bass. And we'll get into a little bit about special times in January that I've found where I catch some of my biggest fish, and just so you're aware of it. But anyway, let's get into the baits. Now, number one, Yamamoto Senko, right? I keep it pretty simple, again, color-wise. This is, I believe, like a 925. Yeah, it's a green pumpkin with red flake and watermelon on the other side. Kind of covers the best of both worlds. Now, if you're fishing deeper water, I would prefer to Neko rig the 5-inch wacky. But we also have the alternatives here with lots of Senkos, right? There's a 4-inch, and that's my watermelon with purple flake. And here's another 4-inch with natural shad. The 4-inch you can fish a lot of ways. You can fish them wacky in a Neko if you want to get it down deeper. You can fish it weightless if you're fishing shallower, but that 4-inch just seems to be a little bit less intrusive, tends to get a little more bites in January. But it can also be fished on a dart head, on a shaky head, on a ball head. I really like to fish it on a Ned head, like a 1/6 ounce Ned. Pairs really well with that. Allows you to get it down into some deeper water, and hey, the Senko gets bit. I mean, it is what it is, right? All right, moving on from there. To cover the water bait, and I'm not the biggest A-rig guy, but there it is. There's an A-rig, and this is what I'm going to show you. This is a 3.3, and this is a short shank hook, right? So it doesn't go back real far in the bait, so it allows, even under slow motion, a little more movement from the back of the bait. Pull out another head here, and you'll see how much further that goes back. That can overpower the bait and not allow it to kick quite as well. So try and pair your heads to the size of the swim bait. I think once you go up to a 3.8, then this size is fine. 3.8 and bigger. That's a bladeless 5-wire Yum, I believe. Fairly inexpensive. And this is what I first started throwing. It's just a 3-wire flash mob, nothing fancy. I tend to like the 3-wire when I'm throwing bigger baits, 4.8 and up. They just tangle less. And I like to really fish this one along the bottom. And then you kind of need to figure out whether they want blades that day, don't want blades. Here's another one. This is the Picasso bait rig. Extreme bait ball. This one's not really extreme. It's got a 3-wire. You can screw on 3 dummy baits up in the front, and then you have your 3 on the back. No blades on this one either. I've been packing. I have a tournament next week, so I've been packing a lot of my A-rigs, a lot of my jigs, a lot of my, well, everything for January is packed in the boat. But I do have some of everything here. Anyway, the A-rig is the second bait that I would say you need to have. And on that note, we're going to stick with the swim bait, and we're going to talk about just a single swim bait. Okay, there's a little 2.8 Keitech on a 3/16 ounce cool head. This is like a get bit rig, right? If you have the patience to fish it. But I tend to lean towards the single hook, and then, you know, your swim bait of choice. These are a Molex. These are pretty cool. They're shaped a little different. So they swim a little different than, say, a Keitech, which is always good if you're fishing around people throwing the same stuff, right? Look at the shape. It's much flatter on top, and then it kind of slopes down to a narrower bottom. This is a 4.5. And the Molex plastic is pretty sturdy. And there you have it, right? You will notice that I have a split ring on the front of that. It just allows it a little bit more movement on the line. That's a 4.5. You can see how much tail is back behind that hook. That's what I'm looking for, so it allows the bait to move freely. That's a 3.8. That's their sexy shad. This, I'm looking to fish in ditches and drains. For the most part, really throwing it out, letting it sink to the bottom, and then slowly swimming it across the bottom. Very, very effective bait. And when it comes to size of the bait, you really kind of want to relate it to the bait the fish are eating. If you know that, it really helps. If you don't, then you're going to have to experiment. The 2.8 on a ball head is kind of, this one's on an underspin, but if you fish that on a little 1/4 ounce ball head, you can get down pretty deep, and it's a very small bait. 3.3 has a little bit more presence. That's honestly what I would normally start with. Again, if you're fishing somewhere that's going to be heavily pressured with Keitech, and you might want to try something a little different. And Keitech has a whole bunch of different choices, right? The Easy Shiner, the Fat Impact, the normal Swing Impact, which is a little narrower bait, a little more action. Sizes are a little bit different. If you can get away with upsizing when there's a lot of pressure, a lot of times that'll get you your bigger fish. Now the next bait will come no surprise, and that is a jig. This is a Z-Man cross-eyed football jig in green pumpkin truce. There's a little really neat color. And these are pretty good for out of the box. I mean, they're not special. They've got a plastic weed guard, like 2 antennas that come up. This one is a G-Money football jig. These can be found on, I believe Tackle Warehouse has them. A little heavier hook than I like, unless I'm fishing somewhere like Clear Lake, Gunnersville, Chickamauga, something like that. Then it's perfect for spotted bass. It's just a wee bit. For me, I don't need the heavy wire hook, and I like to fish the lighter line if I can to get more bites. The Keitech Model 2 little football, tungsten football, that's a 3/8. You see how small that is compared to the normal size jig. So if you're new to jig fishing, this is a good one to try. You know, pair it up with a nice small trailer and get out there and fish it. These do get a lot of bites. These do also. The other one that I really like for the new fishermen is the Yamamoto. And I believe it's called the Hula Grub. Yeah, DTH Grub. This one's in mowed grass. And then it's just slid up on a 1/2 ounce football head. And you see that one's just lead. Doesn't have to be anything special. A lot of times you can find these football heads for bulk. The only thing I'm really concerned about is the hook point. You can see that just ripped my skin. So good hook there. Again, points, drains, guts, kind of be the main target areas this time of year. January will be our winter. February here where I live, we're going to start really transitioning. One thing I did want to say about the jig, and if you've watched my other videos, you'll know that I talk about this all the time. The full moon, one, gets crawl activity moving, but it also gets the big girls looking for food. The full moon in January to me is really a signal. It's a transition time where we're going to start getting ready for pre-spawn. It's time to start feeding up, get ready for the spawn. So those big girls are going to start getting into that area where they're looking for a good meal. And a crawdad is a really good meal for a female bass that's trying to develop eggs. Yeah, so keep that in mind. Look for those types of things. Maybe you fish it a little bit more around those times, around that full moon. And then from there moving forward, we're really going to see moving into February, transition starting to happen. And of course, that's weather dependent, but on average, that's what happens. If we're in a shallower area, say the Delta, Clear Lake, it's time to start thinking about throwing a chatterbait. You can fish a chatterbait really slow. You don't have to fish it fast. You can fish it along the bottom. You can fish it in a bait fish or a crawdad or a bluegill looking type deal, just depending on your body of water. I'm fishing spotted bass lakes the next couple months because of tournaments, so chartreuse and white and then the spot remover color would help work well. All right, moving on to some other the mid-diving crankbait. And if you're wondering the color, I don't know, I painted this. Okay, that's a mid-runner, decent sized lip, not too big, probably I'm going to say 12 to 14 foot. I just like to paint because I get colors you can't get otherwise, right? But all of these are mid runners. This one's a little bit smaller than these. When would I throw these? Well, preferably you start to get a little bit of color in the water. So during storms, when it's been raining for a while and the lake level's coming up, you get a little color in the water. Low light conditions outside with some wind. That's gonna help. That's also gonna help me determine on my A-rigs. Probably want to add blades in either low light conditions or wind, and you got some chop on top of the water or a little bit of color in the water. If it gets too dark in the water, the A-rig's probably not going to be a player. It can be. Use a gold blade. Perhaps you even got some A-rigs with white or chartreuse plates. All right, next. And I did a video and mentioned that these will be a player all the way up to the spawn. These rip baits. And this is another one that I painted, both of these. The 110 and I don't know, maybe a 90. Anyway, the rip bait be a great way to catch suspended fish. It's also extremely effective in the colder water months. It's just about figuring out the cadence. Twitch, pause, let it sit. Sometimes you might be letting it sit 20, 30 seconds. You got to figure out the mood. I remember a Bassmaster Classic, I believe it was on Grand Lake, but I'm not sure, where, man, they were really letting that rip bait sit for quite a while. But it's very, very effective. It's also a way to cover water. It calls fish. If you have live scope, you will be able to tell if you're garnering the attention of the bass. Days that it's on, again, it tends to be a bait that works a little bit better with some wind and chop. Some alternative baits you can use is, I just didn't want to make the video too long. The shaky head, the drop shot, the dart head, the Ned rig, all bottom bouncing, with the exception of the drop shot, which you're still bottom bouncing, you're just doing it with the weight. And the one I really like is the Carolina rig. Not many people throw it around here. It's a very effective bait. It's a great way to cover water and present it a little bit different than what they're used to seeing. A lot of jigs, bottom bouncing stuff being thrown around this time of year. You know, with that Carolina rig, even if you're using a short 18-inch 2-foot leader, you're still allowing that bait up off the bottom, and then it'll slowly meander down. A little more natural than a 3/4 ounce jig. So those are my picks for January. They are rigged on my rods as we speak, as I get ready for this tournament. And Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. We're trying to get the channel up there, and I think when we hit 1,000, we will do some sort of giveaway. you guys can give me some input on that and what you'd like to see, what you'd like the giveaway to be. Don't get too extravagant. I'm trying to retire here in the next 7-8 years. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Happy New Year's, folks. Let's make it a good one.